This podcast is brought to you by Mapper Forward's new Patreon community, the Global Coffee Think Tank. Check the show notes or head to patreon.com/mapperforward to find out how you can become a member today. Welcome back to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I am your host, Lee Safar, and we're in episode 2 of a 5-part series with Todd McCarthy. Welcome back, Todd.
Thanking you.
We are going to explore how you shifted as a person in the coffee industry when you shifted from being a coffee professional to a business owner in the coffee space. So what was that like from a mindset shift for you? Did you change at all?
It was forced change, really, more than anything. I mean, all of a sudden you had a huge amount to start to consider. And I thought I knew everything. I really did. I opened my first cafe and roastery when I was 27, and I was sort of edging my way to 30, and I was like, I know it all. But I was naive and I was incredibly foolish. But I mean, coming from a history of working for other people above me, all of a sudden, yeah, you need to start to talk and communicate in a way that you never have before. But you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about respect and the other people around you. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, as we spoke about just during the break, was how to look after your staff, and how to be engaging.
What did you notice changed the most about you as a person?
You get a lot less time, that's for sure.
It's like having, when my friends tell me what their life is like when they have a baby, I'm like, that sounds a lot like what it is like when you become a business owner. It takes all your money, you lose all of your sleep, you're beholden to everybody else's agenda, and you're constantly feeling like you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah, quite often. Yeah, usually
especially
daily,
your first
multiple
business.
Times a day.
Were you surprised at how hard it was?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you're coming from a background where there was so many other people who took care of the things that you now need to take care of. Coming from the perspective of barista, roaster, you are selecting all of your own green coffees. And I'll say that my buying habits were reckless when I first started.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean? You were buying coffees that were too expensive?
And too much of them. But yeah, I mean, just not having a really firm handle on expected volume and what you're outputting. I mean, but we were such a fresh business. So we didn't know ourselves. We didn't have any markers. We had nothing to go off. So I mean, yeah, we were selecting coffees that we can't afford now, and then sort of I didn't have a roaster above me, so I didn't have anyone to feed off. And being where I am in a regional New South Wales on the east coast of Australia, there wasn't access to anyone. So you were reliant really heavily on you had to trust your gut more than anything, and again, thought experiments and but yeah, I think our from the green sourcing to the roasting, and then I mean, as a barista, you're then responsible to see it all the way through to the very end. And it wasn't until sort of 2 years into our operation that we'd sort of been seen as a bit of a pillar, if you will, a meeting place within the community. And then you were ultimately responsible for the enjoyment of the people who were coming in. Yeah. And then all of that, I mean, that starts to really compound. And you're like, okay, well, are the baristas who are preparing these espressos, are they happy? Are the people who are drinking these, are they happy? And it all just starts to form into all of these other things that have very little to do with coffee, but everything to do with the cafe and coffee industry that all of a sudden you're required to think about. So yeah, I mean, as a person, how has it changed me? It's you definitely become a little bit more thoughtful, and you just need to learn to don't stress the small stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, there's condensation on that glass that's just being polished. They're the things that you need to start to let go, you know?
It's just not worth worrying about fingerprints
It's really
all
not.
the time. Maybe every day, but
Of
not
course.
every hour of every day.
Yeah.
I mean,
precisely.
and you can, but it becomes fatiguing, right?
Absolutely, it does. And then it starts to take away from the other things that you should be inputting a lot more sort of time and energy into. But I mean, as time goes on, it gets easier and it gets easier because you get better at communicating, you get better at tasting, you get better at roasting, you get better at selecting green coffees, you just get better at it all. But yeah, it's been such a journey.
What do you think would be your advice for? Let me preface this by saying, most of the baristas that I meet that come to me and say stuff like, hey, I've got $14,000. What do you think I should spend that $14,000 on? What's the most important thing I should spend that $14,000 on when opening my cafe? And my response is usually spend it on a holiday, because $14,000 isn't anywhere near the amount of money that you need. Right? So it speaks massively to the disconnect of what a barista's expectations are compared to what the reality is of owning a business. So what, as someone who has gone through the fire of our industry as an employee and then gone through the fire as a business owner, and now you've been doing it successfully for some time, what would you say to baristas or roasters that are looking at taking that same leap from being a professional into being a business owner for the first time?
Yeah, of course. Number one advice is know what you can afford and live within your means. Understand your costs, because all of these things, they unfortunately don't come cheap, and especially now. We've just seen a huge exponential growth in inflation, and $14,000 it'll use it to conceptualize what you think something really great will look like. It doesn't have to be now. Be patient, and just to think about all of the it's so easy to say, but just think about everything, every little skerrick that's involved in it, because it can become really scary really quickly. And I've been lucky enough to have a support network around me that has sort of guided me through what that fire looks like.
And that thing that you say there, it can get scary really quickly. Like, that's no joke, right? Like, it's not like, oh, it was stressful and I'm scared of having to go to work every day. No, it's scary of the fact that I might lose everything and I might have to put people out of work. This is serious adult shit, right?
Absolutely, it is, yeah.
And I just want to add one other thing to Todd's wisdom there. Please know why you are doing this if you want to do it, because being a business owner is a completely different skill set to being a barista. The reason I've never opened a cafe is because I really love hospitality and working with coffee. That is a very different thing to owning a cafe. You will rarely get to do the things that you want to do for fun as a business owner, the same way that your staff do. They're the ones who are having the fun talking with the customers day in and day out while you're working on profit and loss statements. Yeah. So
there is that element of sacrifice, absolutely, but in the sort of it's only really come to fruition in the last few years, is that you start to see the rewards of that sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that's been very uplifting. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. But it all balances out.
You worked hard for it.
Yeah.
You worked really, really hard for it. Yeah. All right. So then in the next episode, we're going to talk about, the next 3 episodes, we're going to talk about the future of the industry. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to talk about the challenges of being a cafe owner that are ahead of us. Mm-hmm. And then the challenges of being a coffee roasting business owner. And then we're going to take a look at all the potential opportunities there are moving forward. Let's do it. Great. All right. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everybody. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks, friends. If you enjoyed this video, here's what you should check out next. Consider supporting Map It Forward on Patreon and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell before you leave.